Starting. Is it working?
Yes.
I think it is working. Everybody is here.
Yes, if the attendees can send their some messages in the chat if you hear us well and if you see us well, just put something in the chat, please. Let's sound check. Okay, it works. Thank you. Okay, perfect. And you see two of us. Yeah, that's also good. All right. Then the meeting will start at 2 o'clock finish time. And now it's already 1 minute past 2. Great. Thank you for your feedback. Yeah. So welcome everyone for our last webinar session in 2024 organized by Biobest for Finnish growers. And today we will talk about whitefly control. So we had been talking already about trips, about spider mites, aphids, and now as the end of the season for our digital session, we will talk about the not the least annoying pest on your crop. So Jakob will be presenter and Jakob will get the word.
Okay, I tried to share my screen. Better the window. Okay, this is not what I wanted. Let's get back.
We see
Here
it
we are.
well.
You
Okay.
see the normal screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So, great. Yeah, nice that you're all here. I'm happy to be able to talk now in our fourth installation of this webinar. Topic today is going to be whiteflies in greenhouse vegetables and strawberries in Finland. Are there working solutions? I think I need 48, 50 minutes, and then there's the possibility to ask questions. You can write all the questions in the question answer in the chat, and Anastasia can read them, and then we can talk about this later. We have chosen this kind of Teams meeting, so it's anonymous, so the names are not seen. And this is gonna be then in a YouTube video, and afterwards you're gonna get a link to the video so you can look back at it and the PDF. This is the program. I'm gonna talk about the different whiteflies that there are. Of course, Trialurotis is the most important. Then I'm gonna have a look at the different beneficials that we can apply, a little bit about no residue sprays, and then ending with strategies, because in the end, the strategy is interesting. What do we do? But first of all, a short advertisement block. Learning with Biobest. We have done now these 3 webinars and are now in the process of doing the 4th with the whitefly. But there's also the Biobest Academy where you can learn in your own pace. If you just Google for Biobest Academy, then you find it. And there are some courses that we want you to pay money for, but there are 7 free courses. And one of them is the Whitefly Control Product Introduction. So if you want to see a bit more pictures about the topic we have today, just go there. And on the right side, I put a link, insect activity under different light spectra. This is done by Fluence. They have a lot of great webinars, and this is a webinar where we worked with them. We had a next webinar planned for the 5th of December on aphids and strawberries and raspberries. I promised, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to do this, so we have to postpone for next year. Okay, but now let's really start. What is the damage of whitefly? Here you see some examples. They suck the plant sap of adults, and the adults and nymphs suck the plant sap. You have the honeydew, and on this sugary solution, then sooty mold will develop. This means you have a reduction of photosynthesis. And of course, if the fruits look like the picture down there, then you have to wash them or you have to throw them away. There is other kinds of damage that whitefly can produce, but this is only Bemisia. This could be this silver leaf damage symptoms you have here in the top. This could also be this irregular ripening, but please don't confuse this with, for example, yellow shoulder that happens if you have lots of sun, mainly at the side of greenhouses, or green shoulder. This is mostly a problem with potassium fertilization. The different whiteflies can transmit viruses, but I suppose most of you don't know any one of those viruses because they are mainly viruses of more southern regions. And those viruses that we do have a problem in Scandinavia, CGMMV, CMV, CABIV, tomato brown ghost virus, are not transmitted by whitefly. These are the two main whitefly species, so the Trialerodes vaporarium, often also called the greenhouse whitefly, the glasshouse whitefly, and additionally we have Bemisia tabaki, the silverleaf whitefly, that is fortunately not a big problem in Finland as far as I have learned. How can we differentiate those two? So our normal whitefly has more white wax powder, so it appears whitish, while Bemisia has less wax powder, so it appears more yellowish. Additionally, if you look at both of them, the way they hold their wings, Trialerodes is more of a, how do you say, they are more straight, while Bemisia is holding it more like a roof, I would say. This is also one thing you could differentiate them. Very shortly, this is the life cycle. Normal whitefly, we have the eggs at the start. If you have plants with not many hairs, then they lay them in a circle, so they stay in the middle and lay the eggs around. You have the different larval stages. The larval stage 1, there they can still move. They search for a nice spot, and everything later, they're not anymore moving. Ending with the adult. As always, I think I tell this every time, temperature has a big influence. Almost 50 days at 16 degrees, and at 26 it's much faster. The same is valid for the Bemisia. You realize they have a higher optimum, so at 16 degrees it takes 70 days, and with even higher temperatures than 26, it is faster than our normal whitefly. If you want to differentiate, we started before, the best thing to look at is the pupae. This is the pupae of our Trialerodes, and it is more of a rectangular shape. It's more of a tube, while Bemisia is more irregular shaped. Let's have a look at photos. You see on the right-hand side, the best is if you take really a leaf and then you look from the side, that you can look there, and then you see this is Trialerodes, normal whitefly, much more rectangular, more hairs, while Bemisia has this roof-like structure and is more yellow, yellowish colored. Which one of those is this one? Anyone knows? The answer is none of them. This is Alarodes proletella, and you see it's a bit wider and it has these grayish spots on the wings. And this is the one that we have problems in cabbage. This is the cabbage whitefly, and it can become a problem in strawberries when you have a lot of whitefly coming in from canola, cabbage, or perhaps cruciferous cover crops, something like this. And Carisia formosa and Erythmocerus are working less well, but normally it's not a huge problem. We have a natural parasitoid and Carisia tricolor that you cannot really rear. So I would say that's all we need to know for our crops. Let's turn to the beneficials. And Carisia formosa, I think, is the most well-known one. Everybody knows this black pupa. The adults have two ways to kill the whitefly. The first is, of course, this parasitation that we see here. And the second one is the so-called host feeding. With the host feeding, they put their ovipositor into a whitefly that they don't want to parasitize, and then they suck I would say, the life juices out of them, usually killing them. It works best on our standard whitefly. The development stops below 12 degrees, and Carsia formosa is an old name for Thailand, and it's effective from 18 degrees on. It's one of the oldest beneficial, and it's distributed worldwide in the meantimes. They lay, I haven't corrected this. Okay, they lay the eggs mainly in the L3 and L4 stages, while Eretmocerus is laying them earlier. It also feeds on honeydew, but please pay attention. If you have lots of honeydew, it rather hinders encarsia. An average of 250 parasitations and 30 killed by host feeding by every female at around 20 degrees are given in literature. This is the life cycle very shortly. So you see it is starting at the top. Eggs are laid inside the pupae. Eggs are hatching, getting on, turning the color, and then adult comes out through a round hole. Round hole is really important, and once again, also here, development is faster with higher temperatures. There's only 1 to 2% males, so they do not need to be fertilized. And of course, this is interesting to have lots of females there. This is our advice of applications, a bit adapted to Finland. So we have preventative, medium infestation, and heavy infestation. And of course, those numbers are variable. 1 to 3 individuals per square meter with weekly introductions. We give the advice minimum of 4 times. I assume most of you that are working in lighted crops, in vegetables, will use them weekly through the winter. Some general advice on how to apply them. Sometimes it's really the easy things that you can do right or wrong. If you touch the cards, please never touch the pupae. They are very, very sensitive. Hang them out of direct sunlight. So they should have a leaf above them. They should not be directly have sunlight on them. If you use loose material, put them on a dry spot. This could be just your mat out of direct sunlight. There is one very interesting sentence here, weekly introductions until good parasitism. And one question that you could ask yourself, well, what does good parasitism mean? And it's not so easy to say. And my question to you will be, do you see good parasitism? And if not, why not? We're going to cover this later. How can we monitor the activity of encarsia? Well, we can check the cards for hatching, more to this later. We can tap the plant heads for the adults, but mostly you see more whiteflies. You can check for the parasitism percentage among the larvae. So is there 50%? Is there only 10%? And you can also observe the sting marks, but this is rarely done. You see, they lay the eggs inside, and here you have this loop picture. You can see the sting marks. Additionally, you can observe this hopping adults on leaf. And here, I don't know if you ever look out for encarsia. So you have this black brownish torso, and the rest of the body is yellow. Of course, keep an eye for shiny plants, always a good tip. You shouldn't have shiny plants would be the better advice. Looking at some cards, on the right-hand side, this is older formats of cards. You see the black pupae of encarsia. On the left, you see the yellow pupae of Eretmocerus. And in the middle, you have the mix of yellow and black. Dangers of checking cards. I'm telling the story because it's easier to learn from mistakes and you don't need to do every mistake yourself. We said, well, how can you check quality? Well, just check how many have hatched. So you take your loop and then you look at the cards, and you can do this with the help of your torch from the cell phone. And you would think, well, this is quite easy. What could go wrong? And I also said, oh, sometimes we don't have good hatch rates. And then we all met, me and my colleagues in Belgium, and we were counting cards. And they were taken from quality control. And in quality control, every single card is put into a receptacle, and we let them hatch, and then they fly out on a sticky card, and then the sticky card is counted. So we got these cards. We knew, oh, 80 have flown out, 120, 200, whatever. And then we were counting for the holes. And of course, we expected to find about the same numbers. But one problem is that you can only see what you directly look at. And then the question is where the hatching hole is. And to our astonishment, we were underestimating really hard. This is a nice picture of a card. I think this is a much better image than what you see under your loop. And there you can count the holes. And I've just made the work to just show you the pictures where the pupae are not like this glued, but like that, like upward, and it's not easy to see. And I've just done this for the Encarsia, and so you see this is around 20 specimens where it's hard to really see have they hatched or have they not hatched. So just a word of caution, don't underestimate the hatching. Okay. With that, let's go to Eretmotserus aramicus. This is the other big parasitoid. You see it here. It's doing host feeding, and you also see this one is completely yellow. Encarsia had a brown torso. This one is completely yellow. Once again, temperature has a big influence. Higher temperatures, it's going faster. Bermesia has a higher optimum. It can stand higher temperatures better. The adults live for 3 to 13.5 days. And here we have the same application advice we had before. Because it has much more host feeding than Encarsia, we especially like to use it as a loose material if you have hotspots. Additional loose material, you have a bit of a better hatch rate because Encarsia can go out on both sides of the pupae, while Eretmotserus can only go out on one side. And so sometimes it's happened you glue them to the wrong side of the card. Monitoring activity, here the same like Encarsia is valid. And we turn to recognizing Encarsia and Eretmotserus parasitism. Key fact, and this is not parasitism, this is something else. With Eretmotserus, the egg is deposited under the host, while Encarsia puts it in. And with Eretmotserus, they then hatch and they bury themselves into the whitefly larvae. After the larval development, whitefly pupae turn black for Encarsia and yellowish for Eretmotserus. Both wasps leave a round hole. This is really a sure sign and can be important. We talked about this egg depositing and that you can see these sting holes. And as I said before, this can only work with Encarsia because Eretmotserus puts the egg under there. Yes, true. That's all correct. And here we have some nice pictures. The black pupae, I don't say anything about it. The yellowish pupae with Eretmotserus, this is a really nice picture. Here you would say, yeah, that's obvious. In the field, it's often not so nice. It's often not so clear to see. And this is one of the drawbacks that it's hard to check for the parasitism. But with the emergence, if you look at the red side, Eretmotserus, completely yellow, you see the round hole. And you see, this is the difference. This is the slit that a whitefly makes when it's coming out. For me, I would always use them both. So I would use the mix, the arid mix. Okay, and we have lost 2 slides here. That is a pity. I would always use those two because they have both their strengths. Eretmotserus, much more host feeding, can stand higher temperatures, is stronger against plant protection products like sulfur. It can, especially if it's warm, the how do you say, the longevity can be shorter, sometimes only 3.5 days. And I would like to have parasitoids working all of the time. If you apply them once a week and they only work half of the time, this is not the best method. Don't fear, I'm not going to go into any detail with Microlophus. We did this before. Once again, the life cycle. And Microlophus has no preference between Trailorodes and Bemisia. Whitefly is the preferred food and the best food. What does it mean? If you feed Microlophus whitefly, spider mite, aphid, then on whitefly they have the most progeny and they like it the most. They mainly eat eggs and pupae, but they can eat all life stages. The eggs are sucked out and they leave empty cuticles that can collapse, but mostly they stay outwardly intact. Unfortunately, they attack parasitized and non-parasitized eggs indiscriminately until they turn, I'm sorry, they attack parasitized and non-parasitized larvae indiscriminately until the color changes of the larvae that they then turn to pupae. And what about the other mirrid? The other mirrid means aureus that we also like to use. It can and will eat whitefly, but much less compared to Microlophus. So we use it in pepper and strawberries. And with this, I turn to a beneficial that most of you have not used, perhaps not even heard about, but it is possible to sell it in Finland. It is Delphastus catalinae, and you see this is a ladybug, and it's a really beautiful ladybug that is specialized on eating whitefly, so it only eats whitefly, and this makes it a great tool to clean up hotspots. It tolerates, and this is bold, it tolerates cool temperatures, but it really likes hot temperatures. It's beneficial for the summer or for heated greenhouses. It's very sensitive to chemicals. It needs 2 to 3 weeks to establish. And as Microlophus, it can eat all life stages, but really prefers the young ones. Once again, life cycle. So we have this whitish eggs that are a bit elongated. Then we have 4 larval stages that turn into a pupae and then into an adult. The adults live, the females live for 2 months, so you have a really long time the profit of them. And it's not meant for preventative application, it's only meant for curative, for hotspot treatments. And it's really easy to apply. You just open the tub, then there's paper in it, and then you just put it either in bio boxes or directly on the plants where you have whiteflies. Monitoring, you see this picture here. You need to give them time. Scout near to the introduction points and look for the yellow frass. Yellow frass is the fancy word for insect shit. You see this here. To see if they are working. Usually the larvae are found around the whitefly. I mean, this is this is obvious. One drawback of this, we said, okay, it needs the warmth. It is sensitive to plant protection product, and also the adults really like to fly to sticky traps. And unfortunately, if you usually have a lot of whitefly problem, what do? You apply lots of sticky traps. So yeah, you have to decide usually for one or the other. Adults eat 160 eggs or 12 larvae per day and 10,000 eggs in a lifetime. And in Germany, for example, we really like to use it also in the summer in strawberries, where we can have big problems with whitefly too. And with that, now we had the ladybug, we had the generalists, we had the parasitoids. Let's turn to predatory mites. I'm going to rush through this. This is a so-called radar chart or spider chart. And you might ask, why phyto? Does it eat whitefly? No, it doesn't. It's just for explaining this thing. So this means it only eats spider mites, so it's very strong here on spider mite. It's going to the outward while it doesn't eat the rest. And here you have the temperatures it needs. and this is low, medium, high, and this means how much water does it need or how high humidity it wants. And we're going to rush through it. You see Californicus, Amblysius or Neosilus, this is the new name. We know it likes to eat spider mites, unfortunately not so much whitefly. We have Cucumeris, we know this eats everything a little bit, and whitefly a bit more than Californicus. We have Andersoni, this is a mite we don't use often, it's really good for strawberries, for raspberries, perhaps something for 2026, it eats more of the whitefly. Even more is Degenerans, one of my favorite beneficials for pepper. And the mite eating the most of the whitefly would be Swirsky and Mondorensis that unfortunately I don't have a picture here. But what I would say, predatory mites against agents against whitefly, yes, they do have an effect. They prefer the young life stages, mainly the eggs. Swirsky, Mondorensis, Degenerans eat quite a lot of them. You can expect something from them. On the other hand side, Cucumeris, Californicus, not so much. How to find the mites? This we covered before. Look on the underside, look into flowers if your plant has flowers. Eggs are often laid on these hairs, and they like it in this domatia, so where these nerves are hitting each other. So this was 24 minutes of introduction. Now let's try to bring this all together. And this is a diagram that we are gonna stay on quite a long time. And we're gonna do this step by step. What are we seeing? You see this development. This is the normal development of Trialarodes vaporarium, our normal whitefly at 21 degrees. Eggs are laid, then the larva stage 1 that is moving, and then it is taking time. And if we go through all stages, then an adult is coming out at around 32 days. And now we have our first beneficial here. This is Encarsia formosa, and you see two different kinds of arrows. One is host feeding, and the other is parasitism. So L3 and L4 are mainly used for parasitism. If it now lays an egg inside, then it takes around 13 days at this 21 degree that it turns black, and another 14 days until the adult is hatching. So from egg to adult, 27 days. And if we now combine those two, if you're interested in, oh, how long does it take from the egg of the whitefly that is laid to the adult beneficial Encarsia hatching, it takes 45 days. And this is 6.5 weeks, and 6.5 weeks really is a long time. And we're going to come to that also later, what the meaning of all this is. Then we have Eretmocerus. I don't have this nice kind of arrows. Eretmocerus is using L2 and L3 for parasitation and all of them for host feeding, but mainly the younger ones. And with Eretmocerus, we have it takes around 23 days from laying the egg to the adult. And additionally, because it is parasitizing the younger life stages, the whole cycle is shorter, around a week shorter. Then this is the predatory mites. We said they mainly like to eat the young stages. We talked about Delphastus that also can eat all life stages, but prefers those one. And then we have Macrolophus. Once again, can attack all, likes the younger ones most. Now there is some glaring lack. One life stage we are not attacking, and this is the adult. What can we do there? We can attack the adult, of course, with the sticky traps, and we can spray the heads, and this can be done with something like Siltag, with oils, with soaps. So this is around how to attack whitefly. And this has been like in theory, and now let's go to tomato plant. You see, this is a 25-year-old diagram, and it's not a nice diagram, but it's still correct. So we're starting in the head. Here, the whiteflies are laying the eggs mainly in the top of the plant. And then we are going down the line, and this is in time. So the L1 host feeding is happening from Encarsia and Erythmocerus, 3 to 4 for Encarsia, much for Erythmocerus. Then parasitism, L2, L3, also L4. This is happening more down there. This is the older part. The plant is growing. And then new adult whitefly would hatch around here. And Encarsia and Erythmocerus would hatch around here, so around the 7th cluster. And now, what is the advice that he is giving, this guy from Biobest? And it's good advice in some way. Do not leave there, because there your parasitoids are coming out. However, if I tell you, look, 7th cluster, every cluster has 3 leaves. This is 21 leaves. Everybody will say, yeah, but then I have too much humidity in there. I don't want these leaves. My ripening is much slower. So this is really, it's really hard to say this, but I think most of you will have at least 3 trusses emptied of leaves. This is just another picture of where do we find the different stages. But the question remains, I mean, one thing that we can do, of course, is leave the material on the ground. And I know this is a contested topic. There is a reason not to do it. But if parasitation is working and you know how to check this, then leaving them on the ground is, of course, better. I think in all of my presentations, I always gave room to some crazy ideas. And I'm not saying do it like this. I don't advise it. But sometimes it's good to think about things. Banker plants and trap plants. Once again, I don't advise this, but it has been proposed and tried to use tobacco or eggplant in tomato and cucumber. So you plant them at the start of the row, and then trap plants are usually plants that are much more attractive to the pest. So you draw them there and then remove them or do something. And banker plants are plants where you breed the beneficial. And here it can be a combination of them both. So as the leaf stays, you have better parasitation there. They're not growing so fast, eggplants and tomatoes and tobacco. Or, of course, you could put the whiteflies there in addition to the beneficials and have better development. This is in theory interesting. This is nothing that ever caught on. In some countries, people try to do their own parasitoid production. So they have a separate greenhouse, they have tobacco there, they have whiteflies there, and then they put beneficials there. And I don't fear to say this because, yeah, it can work. Sure, it can work, but it's a lot of work. It's another crop, and usually you have enough work with your single crop, be it cucumber, be it tomato. So I don't fear that you take my job away. But looking back into history, classical method of Encarsia formosa pollination. This is from trials from 1971 that were done in the UK. This is in cucumbers. Parasitism reached 50% in 4 weeks and 90% a month later. Confirming the predictable results followed the introduction of Encarsia, where an even distribution has been assured by artificial manipulation. And what does this mean? Those crazy guys, they put the whitefly in regular intervals, like every 10 plant, every 20 plants, and then put the Encarsia there. So you have all the life stages going there. It was, however, recognized that most growers would object to the principle of pest in first, and so further improvements in the introduction at site method were sought. Yeah, well, quite rightly, nobody likes to put in pests. But I mean, looking back 50 years, they said, okay, there have been many attempts to improve the monitoring of low whitefly population by yellow traps, pheromone, and so on, but none have suggested any reliable practical techniques. And for me, because people in former times, we're not smarter than those guys. They had different methods. And sometimes it's good to look back and see, oh, the same problems already occurred there. What have they tried to do, and perhaps we can learn something from it. Now, very shortly, turning to this no residue sprays, you remember this diagram. This is on the very end. This is how can we attack the adults. This is how it should look. You spray in the head. This could be soaps, oils. It could be Eradicate and Siltac. And if you check, this is how it should look. So they are stuck there. They are just dead. This is meant against the adults. Other plant protection products meant against adults and younger stages. And here I'm missing what I said before. Always check local laws and regulations. Check plant compatibility. There is entomopathogenic fungi. The most important one is Bovaria bassiana. There's different strains. And then there is Preferal that Biobest has sold before, and Mycotal from our competitor Coppert. And they land on the whitefly, they land on the pest, and then they germinate and they go in, and later they sporulate. But all of this fungi efficacy mainly depends on high humidity, and it has a rather slow effect. In practical applications, they have been introduced against whitefly, but most applications are against other pests like thrips, for instance. Cold fogging could be possible. I mean, it's often you say, well, if the efficacy is not so good, then at least it has to be easy. It doesn't need to take time. So cold fogging apparently is possible, but you can also have some residue, especially with the oily formulations and with Botanigard. If you spray right. We talked about this last time. I'm not going to go through it again. If you're using soap and you have hard water, please reduce water hardness with an acid. Everybody knows if you have hard water, you need more soap for cleaning your clothes, and the same is valid here. Is there anything else we can do? Is there anything else we have to think about? Well, fertilization. There are some radicals out there, and they say, look, you're all putting too much nitrogen in there, and if this was a lower nitrogen level, if there was a more balanced nutrition, then no pest would attack the plant. The healthy plant is not attacked by a pest. Yeah, and this is obviously untrue. I mean, there's a morsel of truth in it, as always. There is trials, and you see with low nitrogen levels, the development of many pests are slower. However, these effects we only see at nitrogen levels so low that you have a significant reduction in yield, not like 1-2%, more 20, 30, 50, and of quality. And then, well, you're not selling the leaves, you're selling the fruits. You need to have a good yield. And another point is having a harder leaf, so application of silicone, silicium, with trip or foliar applications, and there is an effect there. The effect is not huge. If you use silicone, don't stop using it, I would say, but don't expect too much against whitefly. Okay. Coming back to monitoring, I talked about this before. I think everybody has seen this. This is Biobest's high-tech solutions. And we have the crop scanner. That is this app where you put in your observations. There is an add-on that you can rent. This is the trap scanner. So you do photos of sticky cards, and you can differentiate 6 different pests, and they are counted automatically. And with the same algorithm, we have the so-called trap eye. So you have 40 systems in your greenhouse, and you get everything directly to your computer without doing anything. And at the end, of course, entomatic. This is for spreading beneficials fast and soft. Of course, for whiteflies, this is not the first investment you would do, but keep it in mind. And this is just a picture from a German grower. This is 4 hectares of trap eye. And every dot you see here represents 1 trap eye. So there's 160 dots. And as always, green is good and red is not good. And this is rather the start of the season. And what you see here, the most extreme, so 23, the most reddish, 23 whiteflies, new whiteflies per week already is red. So this is rather put to the left side, rather careful. And I mean, what we can see there is lots of green still, but we see developing hotspots. And of course, applying lots of of Encarsia or Eretmoceras there, where there's no whitefly, doesn't make too much sense. So if you have a set amount of whitefly parasitoids, it does make sense to put them where we have more of them. And this is quite easy, and I think a good argument for a system like that. And now let's turn to the strategies, and we're going to start with cucumber. And I'm not starting with a strategy, I'm starting with an example. This is an example from a more southern country that a colleague had. He had lots of whitefly starting on the crop because he couldn't start clean. And he said, okay, this is what I did. I started with beneficials plus Verimark. Verimark is cyanotraniliprol. It's not allowed in Finland. It has a certain effect against whitefly. Then he did 100 Swirsky per square meter at the plant grow. This is good if you can do it. It's not so easy. And then full field, 50 Swirsky per square meters, 2 weeks in a row, a Swirsky sachet on each mat, and then 10 Encarsia per square meter in 6 consecutive weeks, and 2 yellow ribbons. This means the sticky rolls on top of each other. As a result, we had a clean start and a fairly easy cultivation, despite starting with high numbers. For the southern regions, this sounds extreme. I think you know how much of a problem whitefly can be, and I would say, with the exception of the 10 Encarsia, these are not crazy numbers to you in lighted drops. My cucumber strategy would be, as always, look at what you know about your greenhouse and about the crop before, and act accordingly. From the start, I would do the standard mix of cucumeris plus Swirsky loose, 250 cucumeris, 50 loose, apply them right after planting when they're on the ribbon. If you have high pressure, increase those numbers. Always you can apply food if you want. This is not more work. I would apply weekly arid mix to combine the strengths of both. And at the start, I would use 3 per square meter in lit crops. I would use Swirsky sachet as usual, and if you expect a higher pressure, you can use more sachets. And use an additional Swirsky loose application in the week you hang the sachets and or feed them, because of course the sachet needs some time till they start releasing the first predatory mite, and the peak is later still. And now you might say, okay, but we just talked about hotspots. Does it really make sense to use more sachet on the whole area when I only want to fight the hotspots? True. If it's only whitefly, using more sachet perhaps is not the right strategy. You could use more loose in hotspots. And the question would be, are you already doing this? Do you put more of your Swirsky into the hotspots? Would be interesting to know. Perhaps you have to do it additionally, that you say, okay, I order 10 buckets and I use an additional one and I know where the hotspots are, and another person is applying, especially against whitefly there. When you always have a high pressure of whitefly, use sticky rolls from the start. And then you're in the crop. What do you do when the pressure increases? The same, but more. So increase numbers of Eretmoceras, increase numbers of loose Swirsky, spray the heads against adults weekly, but pay attention because cucumbers are not the most hardiest plant. And when hotspots develop, then I would say apply more arid mix there. Perhaps use loose Eretmoceras additionally as a host feeding. Then apply more Swirsky loose there. For example, starting with 500 per running meter. You could put Nutrimite in there. You could put another food like our Feedamite, our Praymite. And now some people will say when I come to the next points, oh, this is strange advice. I never heard of it, but please, this is the last steps or the steps for extreme measurements. This would be apply Delphastus in 3 consecutive weeks. This is the ladybug we talked about. I said you catch quite a lot with sticky traps. HBS houses are not the best because they fly into the light, but this would be another option. Or in southern region, it is done. I talked about it with spider mites. Apply Macrolophus nymphs. We know that Macrolophus really eat quite a lot of whitefly eggs. We know that we use it in tomato. It can do a little bit of damage compared to ligas. It can sting the fruit, so it's a double-edged sword, but it could be one option. Tomato, for me, a strong Macrolophus population is the baseline of everything. And I say it once again, best quality is Biobest quality, in my opinion. And it might not be the cheapest, but you have it for the whole season. So if you want to sleep better, buy the Biobest Macrolophus. Reducing sulfur use in the crop helps Encarsia and arid mix. We had the same topic with the spider mite last time. Good for Feltiella. How could we do that? Hit with the sulfur right at the start when no Macrolophus in it, when no Encarsia is in it. Use phytosafe or alternative products against powdery mildew to reduce the use of sulfur. If you spray against russet mite, spraying below the fruit can be an option. Spray the full plant only in the well-scouted hotspots, so not on the whole area. This would be what you can do. For me, once again, always use the mix. Leaves on the ground helps both Macrolophus and arid mix, and the arid mix if parasitation is happening. I would start with sticky rolls, not putting the sticky rolls in the rows where you apply the Macrolophus. When pressure increases, spray the heads. Tomato is not so sensitive compared to cucumber, in my opinion. And in the hot spots, additional arid mix there, or better, arid Mozzarus loose. You can put Macrolophus nymphs there, and once again, the side shoots, if you collect them separately in a bucket, then put them there just on the gutter. You can sprinkle some Artemia there. The eggs of Macrolophus will hatch. It takes time, but you already paid for these beneficials. Don't throw them away. Whew. And then we turn to strawberries. And this is the diagram I showed you before when we talked about trips, about spider mites. This is concerning everbearers. I think in the June bearers, most people don't do much with beneficials. And this is then from planting through the whole crop cycle. And if we look at what is there generally, what is working against whitefly, then I have the cucumeris that work a little bit, and then mainly the Swirsky sachets. And what is different with the strawberries? This is the big topic. It is temperature. So strawberries are grown in very different ways, and we have to think about this so we don't throw away our money on beneficials that will not work. If we are in heated greenhouses, then Encarsia and Erythromoceras work well. Perhaps hang them only on the walls where you have more whiteflies and usually also higher temperatures and in the hotspots. Delphastus works great from spring on. And Swirsky, unfortunately, and this is in heated greenhouses as outside, does not so work well compared to other crops. We are not sure why, not so work so well against whitefly. We are not sure why. I mean, they are often, we find them in the flower. We have trips that they mainly eat. So we assume it's an effect of they like the trips more. Yeah. In unheated tunnels and in tabletops, Swirsky, the same is true there. Delphastus is good in summer. It can thrive there because you don't remove the leaves. It stays there for a longer time, but the average temperature should be above 20 degrees. The best temperature is 26 degrees. So you see, yeah, where we are there. And Encarsia also should have, I said it before, Formosa is a name for Thailand, should have 18 degrees mean temperatures, then they can work well. And I don't really like to say it, but when temperatures are low, so early spring and autumn, physical acting biopesticides that we talked about are one element of the solution. And the big advantage is that strawberries have very hardy leaves, so they're not sensitive to these sprays. Pepper? Really? You have a problem with whitefly and pepper? It can happen. If this happens, it's mainly Bemisia that apparently you don't have. Macrolophus for me is the baseline. I like Macrolophus and pepper also against caterpillars. It can be great. I would apply the arid mix. In the hotspots, I would put the 500 Swirsky we talked about. And Delfastus also works well, used in 3 consecutive weeks. This means I have come to the end. I thank you for listening, and I'm waiting for your questions. Perhaps one last thing I want to tell you. I've now done 4 webinars. I know how, or I believe I know how many growers think. If I can give you one last and most important tip, it would be, yes, try out things. Don't try too many things at once. Measure twice and cut once, I would say. So do not too much at once. Observe carefully what you have done, write this down, and then do more of the things that worked and not so much of the things that didn't work. And if you have any feedback, please come back to us. And with this, I think I will stop sharing and then answer some questions or listen to some feedback that you might have.
So, Jakob, let's start from the feedback from the chat. There is just good words about trap eye. So the Andres is happy to use the system. Yeah.
That's nice to hear.
And a very interesting session, also to praise you. Okay. There was a question.
I think we have the problem that we cannot, people cannot talk now, or we have to call them in somehow.
Oh, it's alone a lot, people said.
Okay.
I think if someone will raise their hand and would like to ask the question, then we can unmute it manually.
Bring on screen somehow. Okay.
So the question. Oh yeah, I think that that will be which will be asking. Let's try to. I see the request, and now let me see how we can. Okay, I think it's only you. Hello, bring the screen. Bring on screen. Make a presenter. I think you have to. You have to unlock it.
There is, but it's written in there. Perhaps I just
it could be also connected. I believe, Jaros, and it's connected also to your question from the Q&A blog.
Increasing the relative humidity. This is one option. We talked about this with the spider mites. Some people, they drive through with a water spray and then sprinkle it. This has 2 advantages. You don't lose so much material falling down if you put it on a wet leaf. And the beneficials, they can drink right away. Some people have even put on a spray boom. They are spraying water and then they put those handheld mite applicators on 2 sides. This is also an option. But always with humidity. So this is good. This would be the perfect if you can do it, but it takes a lot of time. The second about humidity, we always have to be careful what kind of humidity we are talking about, because we are on the leaf and we have a very different kind of humidity in like the first 2 millimeters where the mites are compared to what we are measuring in our box. So usually the humidity there is much higher. We advise to apply the beneficials not in the heat of the day, but rather in the evening. And we had this in the session before that many people say, yeah, but I don't have so many people. I need to bring it out, and this is one other advantage of the entomatic that you can then really apply at the time you want to do this. This I would say to this question. The second question was, what is the mixed ratio between Cucumeris and Swirsky? Is this dependent on the time of the application? As always, there is a short and a long answer. 1 to 5 is something that I like, or 1 to 5, 1 to 4. And I use them at the start of the crop. I mainly like the sachets because with the sachets, you have a lot of security. It works longer. It's easy to apply. You can check if it has been applied in the right way. you're not you can store them for 1 or 2 days. For example, if you need to do a plant protection application, I'm a big fan of sachets, but they of course need some time that they get out, and then the plants need to touch. And so I like to apply first when they're on the string, loose material, so they're on every plant. And cucumeris, of course, is not so good in the summer. It is not so strong as Swirsky, but for me, the added value is if you have cucumeris and Swirsky, you have the numbers, you save money, and if there is nothing there, then the Swirsky will eat the cucumeris and they will stay alive. So it's something of a combined beneficial slash food.
Okay, I tried. There is a question and raised hands from Rosen, but I cannot. I think only you can unmute to ask the question. But I guess it's regarding the question in the chat box
Mhm.
about the introduction time. And shall we admit the pre-harvest index upon introducing beneficials?
This was pre-harvest. This was not humidity. Okay, then I completely misunderstood the question. I'm sorry. Should we admit the pre-harvest? But can I read this?
You can read.
I know I
PHI.
can read. But shall we admit the upon introducing beneficials? Yes, if you can. I mean, in the end, we have our the Biobest app, the side effect app. And what I wouldn't do, for example, is applying beneficials and then spray right away. We all know there is plant protection products that are very harmful against all our beneficials. This would be the broad-acting things like pyrethroids. Against mites, of course, sulfur. I would say you should. This is a case-by-case base. Like acetamiprid also has a wide range. Look at it beforehand. Yeah, if you can, you should admit the harvest interval. True.
Okay, great. And then we have a few questions in the chat. So you already replied an other one about mixed ratio and cucumbers. Yeah. The question from the chat, I don't know if you see it. During the presentation, you showed development time per temperature for whitefly. For Bemisia, it was less days. And question is it really true? Because for greenhouse whiteflies, it was 21.5 day, and for Bemisia was 22.3 at 26 degrees. Do you have a chart with whitefly development by temperature in range between those mentioned 16 to 26 degrees?
I don't have a chart at hand. It's always interesting when you do such presentation, what is available and already depicted. Bemisia is not faster. It is slower at lower temperatures. It was 70 days at 16 degrees, and the Trialarodus, it was 50 days, I believe, or 49. But if you go for temperatures of like 30 degrees, then Bemisia is faster. This is, of course, always the danger if you just look at 2 points and you have something like this. Um, yes, so I don't have a chart available here that I can share with you. But my question always is, I mean, these numbers are interesting, but the question is, what do we derive from that? If you said, okay, because I still don't know. Do we have now Bemisia in Finland? There was some rumors. Yes, there is a little bit, or sometimes, but then also we don't have it. Is this a problem or not?
Yeah, if someone can tell it, because you are anonymous, so don't worry. We can at least use the data just to steer that communication in the right way. But just
Mhm.
drop it in the
Yeah.
chat if it's possible.
Okay.
Who
Yeah.
thinks?
So the question, of course, this is a valid point. How many days we can keep the leaves on the plant at this known temperature? Yeah, true, true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, if you look at times when the pupae are turning color, this could give you another indication. I might think, and yeah, I'm always, I mean, I really like the diagram and the tomato, and I think this is the base of all of this. And if you're growing tomatoes, then this is important to think about, because I would say in tomatoes, often you don't see any black pupae because you remove this. One, how do I say this? One soft spot or one drawback often is with these trials that many of these trials are done with constant temperatures. And the one thing that we don't have is constant temperatures. We have variable temperatures. And it's very hard to say, well, how do they act when we have daytime temperatures of 28 degrees? And because we want to save energy, nighttime temperatures or then we have the pre-night with 14.5 and then the rest of the night. And there is no real data there. Yeah. But we can go with this 24-hour average temperature. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is the question actually to why I believe the question will not address it. The reply is so we derive how many days we can keep leaves on the plants at known 24 hours average temperature. So we can remove leaves with a pupa, so it does not hatch to decrease adult pressure.
Yeah, but decreasing. I mean, okay, now, yeah.
And just I think
it's
the
not
comment
it's not a strong day for me, but I think removing leaves so that you don't have the pupae, perhaps. I'm not sure if I can manage. I try to share once again, and then
had nice diagram there. It's graphs.
the screen is not working.
We see your screen. It was well done. We see it.
So share window. And then we share this one. And then I go to this diagram. And then we have another look there. So lots of here we are.
Yeah, now I see the last slide. Thanks for listening.
So now you should see biological control of whitefly and this diagram that we have.
I see only last slide of presentation.
Okay, that is a pity. Now you see the last slide. Okay, then let's go through this. I'm sorry. Is this the fastest way to do it? I'm sure not, but I'm sorry.
We still have a few minutes, don't worry.
Okay. Whew.
This is really animation.
So we talked about a lot of things. No residue. I think there we get to it. But I mean, so we were here, and I mean, so the question could be, and I think this is not a question that would ask to say, look, do not leave here. If we know when they're developing the parasitoids, then we leave the leaves there or we leave them there. And I think the question was, if we have the development of the Eretmotserus, so here it would be 37 days, and 37 days would be around 5.5 weeks. And 5.5 weeks would be if you have every week one truss and 3 leaves, but in lighted crops this can be different. Then it would be from egg laying 15 and a half or something. No, a bit more.
Jakob, just to continue that messages.
No, yeah.
I would like just to add to continue that the person who asked it. First of all, I believe it's a bit south than Finland, and so it is actually on cucumber, and I'm just continuing to reading. Cucumber leaf grows up to 26 days on plant, so I can keep 18 leaves instead of 24 leaves. So I'm more late at cucumber.
So,
still Finland. Okay, I thought then it's still Finland.
We can keep leaves on the plant, but I have to say I think I have to think about this more, and I will try to get this Bemisia. But what I didn't get, I think also at Ulf, we were there. This is not Bemisia, is it? This is normal whitefly.
Andres, is it
And
not?
normally
It is
I
not
would
a
say,
Bemisia. You're right. It is not
yeah,
Bemisia.
okay. Because normally I would say, I come back to that. You get the PDF later, and then I have to think about it, and I put in some diagrams.
And so
I
it's
put in
normal
some
that.
diagrams if I still find some. My impression is, of course, with high wire cucumber, turnover is even faster with tomato. So it's really hard to find a lot of parasitation. What you want to do is remove leaves with the pupae that have not been parasitized to decrease the adult pressure. But if it's not Bemisia, then I would say it's 32 days from egg to adult. So you are wondering why, because you're removing all the leaves. So why is a population increasing and increasing?
Yeah, because
This is
it's
now I
coming
understood
back.
the question.
Correct.
That is a good question, and at the moment I cannot tell you. I mean, I know the greenhouse. This is a clean greenhouse. It's not like you would have lots of herbs somewhere where they can
Yeah.
then increase. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't have lots of side shoots that would stay there for a longer time that you would think. It's a high wire crop, so you have always the removal. It's not an umbrella crop. At the moment, I cannot tell you why it's so extreme. And if you say, okay, but this is the situation as it is, then I would say, okay, so parasitoids seem to be not the best solution. Then I would go more in direction of Erythrocerus instead of Encarsia, but still having both in. And then the other options are, like I said, Delphastus, but problem is with the sticky traps or the sticky rolls. And HBS, I'm not aware which light this is. Yeah, then go more in direction of predators. But it's a
Yeah.
very good question. I have to think about this longer. You put me on the spot. Thanks. Thanks for that.
Yeah, because Andres believe it is the temperature relation to the temperature. Because indeed the problem is that it's coming back.
Temperature and light. Also, I mean, this is something I have lost 2 slides in the presentation in some mysterious ways, and this was also a bit of about influence of light. Yeah.
All right. We can come back to that also later. This
So I
question.
think this person that you tried to put there is having his hand up.
Yes.
I tried to bring him on the screen.
Then you need to unmute it. I cannot.
Okay. Unmute. Okay. I cannot unmute him. Perhaps
Okay, then.
making him I mean, I can make him a presenter and then he can talk. Let's try that. So, and then can we unmute, or he can unmute himself?
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
cannot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
I got an answer of my question, so I raise up the hand earlier
Okay.
than the question.
Not
But
a problem. You
I
see,
do
we
have
are
one remark. You mentioned that the ratio between Cucumeris and Swirsky should be 1:5, 1:4, 1:5, but in regards of which, so 1 time Cucumeris, 5 times Swirsky, or vice versa?
No, 5-time Cucumeris. Cucumeris is much cheaper, and I didn't say this should be. This is what I have good experience with.
Yeah.
And I would say, of course, Cucumeris doesn't like the heat so much. So if you have the summer crop, then you could say, oh, I use more Swirsky in relation to Cucumeris. Yeah. But I think, as I try to say this every time, I mean, every greenhouse is different, every grower is different.
Indeed.
And even if you have very similar greenhouses, what works like a charm in one greenhouse doesn't work in the next. So it's always observing, does it work, does it not work? And Yeah. Do not only listen on consultants. Think yourself. That's the most important.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a good one.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there more questions before we finalize the meeting? So Jakob, greetings from Australia.
Okay.
10:40.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
thanks Jakob. Greetings from Australia. It's almost 11 p.m. there.
Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
Okay.
It's a bit different growing condition, I believe, than in Finland, but you're more than welcome.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then, I mean, the one thing that I'm not sure if I said, you're gonna get a PDF of this. We have your names, and you're gonna get a link to this YouTube video. And I tried to do a collection of all the 4 videos if you couldn't be there, and then we sent this to you. Still in this year, this I can promise. Yeah. And then it's been great that we had so many visitors. Thanks a lot, and
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
till the next time.
See you all. Thank you all. See you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Then I'm closing off. So sorry, guys, I'm gonna remove you from this meeting. Otherwise, I cannot end it. And we have a recording here.